Murktide Regent, great Magic the Gathering card. But you know what would make it greater? If you threw it at your opponent's face for 9 damage. Okay, real quick before I get going, I did a whoopsie earlier this week, and I pushed out 2 videos on the same day. So if you didn't get pushed the Bomberman or Legacy Knights video, check them out from earlier this week. They're pretty good. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video. And today, we're going to try to throw Murktide Regent at our opponent's face for 9 damage using Broadside Bombardiers. So, Broadside Bombardiers is currently in multiple Tier 1 Legacy deck lists. It is a part of the Goblin Stompy deck list, where throwing sticker goblins and friends at your opponent's face, or repeatedly having removal off things like Goblin Rabblemaster for small opposing creatures, is very, very, very strong. And it also sees some play in like the Moon Stompy and Initiative style deck lists as well, where you can throw Trinospheres and Chrome Moxen and other unused artifacts to finish the game. And this card has just kind of repeatedly been impressive and is seeing more and more legacy play. Now, today's video comes to us from James, who funded this video, who wanted to see Momo321's. They called it a teamer that is a Rug Delver deck list, which it kind of is, but the Spiceometer is set to Scorpion Pepper here. So, like a Delver deck, we have the Ponder, Brainstorm, DRC, Daze, Force of Will, Shell. But this deck is going bigger. Let's go this way for bigger. And it is gearing towards being an Up the Beanstalk deck. And when your Force of Wills and friends start cantripping, they start to look kind of gross. So here is the general game plan. You're going to be this tempo deck that has a pretty disgusting finish of Broadside Bombardiers, where you can do something like cast or evoke a Fury, pave the way, throw it with Broadside, that's worth 7 damage. Or throwing a Murktide Regent is worth 9 damage, which, considering incidental like Ancient Tomb, fetch land damage, all that sort of stuff, is half your opponent's life total. So the big question for today is like, do you actually have to work this hard? Or can you just play some other threat? You know, Delver, Hooting, Mandrills, Ethereal Forager, whatever. You know, there's tons of things that can see play in this overall Delver shell. Is the juice worth the squeeze? It will certainly be worth the screenshots. I can tell you that much. And Gene, buddy, this one's honorarily for you, because I know you have wanted to see Broadside throwing Murktide Regent for a long, long, long time. As far as the sideboard goes, we just have general good Delvery sideboard cards. The Hull Breacher here is a little bit spicy, and Carpet of Flowers out of the sideboard can help accelerate us into actually just casting some of these things like Fury and Minskin Boo. Yeah, so with that being said, if you like what you see today and you want to buy some of these cards, check out Cool Stuff Inc. and use promo code ThrabenU to save 5% on your next order. And let's battle. We're starting off with a weird one. I'm going to keep it. It's weird in that I have my island, but it's not in my opening hand for Daze purposes. My opponent said, "What's up?" and I responded with the percentage of Ancient Tomb decks in leagues, winky face. That was a good one. It would have been really funny if my opponent played turn 1 Ancient Tomb after that comment. Basic Plains. And yeah, I don't get to daze this removal spell here. And my Wasteland also looks much worse. I'm just going to make this as a land drop and pass. I'll just have this in play for a follow-up cantrip in the not-too-distant future. I'm imagining there's just one Taiga in this mana base. I'm not going to go back and check, but that's kind of conceptually my guess. Let's cycle for a tropical island here in respect of Uro. Oh, there's 2 taigas. 2 taigas is a little weird. I think I want to play Uro and then drop Wasteland off of Uro to take out this Tundra. I think that's where I'm at. Green, green. Let's just grab a Volk so I can't be wasted off red. And then Uro. Yeah, and it doesn't really make sense to counter something like an Uro on the way down. Yeah, you can cycle with Lorien Revealed. That's totally fine. They've gotten a basic island. I'll put a Wasteland into play. This goes bye-bye. I am going to go ahead and just Wasteland my opponent now. This is fine. I could counter this Brainstorm. I think I'm going to do that. I think I'm just okay with that 1-for-1 trade. I'm looking at number of cards in graveyard here, and I'm not quite there for Uro, even with that Daze. And this Wasteland is probably not going to do anything in the next turn cycle because my opponent just fetched up a basic island. Holy lightning bolts, Batman. That's not really what I want here. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can lightning bolt my opponent's face once. Cavern? Are we like cephalid breakfast? Yeah. Okay. I think I just let that resolve. It's a little awkward, but now I think I have a lightning bolt target. See if my opponent minuses immediately. They do not. Alright. Lightning bolt to fairy twice. Take that out of play. We'll take this Cavern of Souls out of the equation. And then on turn cycles after here, I can play Murktide Regent holding up Taiga for Lightning Bolt for creature-based interaction. And we probably just ignore Uro. Sure. Another basic island. I'm not in a rush, I don't think. Like, I would love to draw more lands. I would love to draw more interaction. Taiga, slightly annoying here. Not 100% sure that I would cast it, though. Even if that was like a Volk. New Cavern on Wizard. Alright. So, both of us have card advantage engines going now. Sure. How many instants and sorcerers are actually in my graveyard? 1, 2, 3, 4. Guess I can ponder to make it a 5th. This is fine. Go like bam, bam, bam. No shuffle. Do this. We'll drop a Murktide, draw a card, and then I will set up to play another Murktide. It's possible I should have made this one smaller than the max 8/8 to work on growing the second one. But I'm hoping that with Up the Beanstalk, like just fueling my graveyard is not going to be that big of an issue. Regular old cantrips are going to be fine. Unless my opponent is like dead on board. We're not fighting over that sort of stuff. Alright, there's some card draws. Oh, something I don't think I've said out loud, but I have been thinking to myself, is that it's possible my opponent is like a Thought/Thassa's Oracle deck, rather than Cephalid Breakfast. Yeah, there we go. What is the wording here? Prevent the next 1 damage that would be dealt to you. Yeah. I think there's a very good chance that I end up dying next turn. This Thought Lash just resolves. My Taiga doesn't let me brainstorm for counter magic. And my opponent has uncounterable Thassa's Oracle queued up and protection from target Murktide Regent by exiling 8 cards from the top of their library. So let's try to find some interaction here. Wasteland is cool. This stuff less so. Let's put back the DRCs. Fetch, and I can re-brainstorm. Let's get a trop in respect of Uro. Eh. I've already played my land drop. Means I'm kind of stuck with these cards. Actually, I guess I lightning bolt my opponent's face here. Send it. All right, we got an oracle. That's good. All right, my lightning bolt does no damage, but now in the graveyard to do this. So let's always yield to that. Draw my card for beans. Make a large amount of power. And send it. My opponent will Thought Lash a bunch of times. And my opponent successfully fogs. So now for the cumulative upkeep, they need to exile a card. There's 2 Thassa's Oracles in exile. And in case you haven't seen this deck before, Paradigm Shift is one of the ways that they also go and empty their library. Just quick rules note, Thought Lash prevents the next 1 damage, whereas the One Ring is life loss, and those 2 things are different. Am I dead? Probably. Alright, so my opponent exiles a bunch of cards from their library and then deploys the Thassa's Oracle, which does kill me. Yeah, we get the kill on a deck that does not have this degree of protection. So we've got a couple Teferis in here. Main deck Lavinia is a little spicy. Main deck Relic, multiple main deck relics. Alright, so Torpor Orb, very good against Thassa's Oracle. Null Rod is a consideration for the One Ring. Pyroblast is something that can destroy a card like Thought Lash. Force of Negation seems good. Hullbreacher is something I can consider. Carpet is something that I can consider. My Lightning Bolts can fight over Teferis, otherwise they're pretty mid. Life from the Lone Wasteland is medium. It's like the Dredge is nice for Murktide Regent and friends, but can probably go down a couple copies of Fury, keeping some to, have another out to Teferi in the deck in addition to the Pyroblasts is reasonable. Maybe go down 2. This gets me these, Hullbreacher. Carpet's not the best versus a Prismatic Ending Teferi deck that also has a decent amount of basic planes and Cavernous Souls. Let's just do a Fluster. Fluster doesn't fight over some of the weird permanent types my opponent has, though. Maybe we'll just Brazen Borrower as a filler card. I did go down 2 threats by removing Furies. This is a reasonable keep. These Taigas, though. I think I am interested in Trop in respect of Uro here. And I'm probably looking for land drop number 3 here. Let's not Force of Negation right now. Let's just take land drop number 3 and land drop number 4 and assume that I end up having a reasonable Spell Pierce target. I can leave the Force of Negation on top, or if I decide I want it. So for example, if I end up Spell Piercing just a cantrip or something in this turn cycle, then drawing my Force of Negation is more reasonable. I'm just going to go ahead and fetch away that since I did not. Grab a Volk. Gives me blue, blue, green, green towards Uro. Hey, it's Uro's cousin. More other Uro. And now I don't care if my opponent just uses a Swords to Plowshares on this Uro on the way down or something. Nice. And my opponent does indeed do that, and I will let them do that. Lorien Revealed is potentially a real card. That is, I may potentially just tap 5 mana to draw 3. My gut says Spell Pierce that. No explanation, just my gut says that that is a fantastic brainstorm. My opponent is playing a lot of high mana value cards in their deck. There's a good chance that Spell Piercing a Brainstorm might keep them off of land drops, and if I keep them off of land drops, I probably pull pretty far ahead. Yeah, notice this long pause here. I think my opponent has a counterspell of some kind, and they were considering fighting over that brainstorm. Yeah, I am keeping them off of land drops here, while also getting to wasteland them off Tundra. This is very good. Let's leave up Volcanic Island and Uro. I want to do this so that if I draw DRC, I can just play it. I'm punished with an Up the Beanstalk draw, but I wouldn't play that this turn anyway, because I've got a Tundra to murder. So now I'll pass the turn. I can Uro with Force of Will backup if I hold Lorien Revealed in my hand. I don't think I am going to accordingly cycle Lorien Revealed at end of turn. Okay. I Uro. It resolves. Another Force of Will. Okay, very nice. So at this point, I probably do Force of Will to protect an Uro. But I only Force of Will to protect an Uro once, I think. Another Brainstorm, huh? I mean, I actively know it's good. I actively know it's good. Well, okay. I'm gonna fight harder here. If I lose the Uro to a Swords, I lose the Uro to a Swords. But my opponent just has like unplayable cards stuck in hand, and I have a draw engine on board with a second draw engine in hand. I'm just so good at capitalizing on the current board state that I think I'm okay getting hyper aggressive with Force of Wills. Opponent's at 12. I'm gonna brainstorm to. Actually, maybe I beans first. Let's beans first and get one card deeper before the brainstorm. Now I'll brainstorm. Yeah, this is not bad. I'll put Broadside on top. Play land drop. Play DRC and pass. You may resolve this brainstorm. This one's okay with me. So I imagine. Oh no, it is a cycle immediately. I imagine that I lose Uro now. I am correct. But that's honestly okay with my opponent's life total as low as it is. This is a slightly expensive Murktide Regent. So this puts my opponent on a 1-turn clock because I attack for 9 next turn and then throw Murktide Regent at my opponent's face. The sort of unfortunate thing is that Brazen Borrower can... that's fine. I was saying something about Brazen Borrower, but I forgot what it was. I can attack my opponent for 5. Throw for 5, throw for 1. Seems good. Bulk. There's Broadside. There's Broadside's cousin. Attack you. Put you to 6. Activate a Broadside. Targeting you. Throwing a DRC. Activate a Broadside. Targeting you. Throwing a Broadside. Cool. Well, this is neat. So easy to win games with Broadside. So, countering cantrips felt really good that game. Maybe I'm undervaluing Fluster. Like, just so I can play some more early interaction, I could go Hull Breacher down. Hull Breacher's just really good versus the One Ring in particular. Let's nuke the Fury or a Fluster. Possible I'm undervaluing Life from the Loam. I have no mana sources here. That's an auto mulligan. This hand gets to do classic Delver nonsense. I'm going to keep this one and get rid of the Brazen Borrower. I'm probably operating on 1 land a decent portion of the time in the early game here. So something that costs 2 mana is just short term out of the question. This relic is really good. I think I'm going to Force of Negation that relic. With double DRC here, like, this is just a critical card. And I think I'm not going to have an easy time winning a game of Magic if my opponent fights over this relic. F. Okay. Now, my opponent is down to 1 card, so, like, I can potentially just force them to pop the relic and move on with my life. Yeah. But that is a very good relic. And this is a DRC that is not going to be great, but it is going to turn every one of my cantrips into a super cantrip, and for that reason alone, it's probably just going to be an acceptable Magic the Gathering card. That's an almost good card. I think I'm just going to attack with the DRC for 1. See if my opponent decides to swords it. They do not. I feel awkward showing this Wasteland, but I want the second DRC in play before I brainstorm so that I can aggressively double surveil into the graveyard. Yep. And I will very aggressively daze a card that I can daze, but I might be waiting until a 4-drop for that to happen. Pre-combat? I think I'm going to be aggressive here and graveyard these things. I want to overcome this relic, so I am just going to hyper-aggressively put stuff into the graveyard. Torpor Orb's very good. I think I'm going to cast Torpor Orb this turn. Yeah, I think I'm good with that. So this is just 1 card type in graveyard. But yeah, that's fine. With how I've done this, I now get to add sorcery and creature to my graveyard, meaning that I have 3 of these types in there. And redundancy versus relic. I still have Daze for if we get to a 4-drop, which I think is the thing that strongly spins this game in my opponent's favor, which is why I have opted to keep that specifically. And another thing that I can do is actually fight over a Teferi at 3 mana, which is a pretty big deal because it's something that can sit there and then bounce a Torpor Orb. Opponent's got that and Prismatic Ending that can fight over the orb. They don't win the game with the orb in play because it shuts off the Thassa's Oracle trigger. All right, my opponent has resolved their brainstorm, but they're not making more land drops. Yeah, this is fine. Again, still 3 card types in graveyard. I hope to attempt to attack for 6 this turn. I could do it by wastelanding my own land. I don't think I'm into that. I also don't think that I am playing Volcanic Island. Like, I would very much love to brainstorm away Volk. Sure. I let a Swords to Plowshares resolve, I think. Nope. So my opponent is redrawing for that brainstorm. I will get rid of instants in my graveyard. The easiest one to get back. That's fine. And we're chilling. That's not what we want. Send them. The second wasteland is probably worse than the Volcanic Island. Yes, this is fine. It's not good for me, but it is happening. So now I'm going to play Volk. We're going to start opening up like cantrip into Murktide Regent sort of lines. So my opponent really tanked. And then they chose to cast a Teferi. I will go ahead and attempt to daze this. My opponent should respond with this on the stack. I'm just going to bin this. Another Daze is okay, but I think I have better draws. Like, even a hard counter like Force of Will is noticeably stronger. Daze is specifically good against, like, the One Ring, and, yeah. This is just a much stronger draw to have access to. Send it. I may just deal 20 points of damage with 1/1 creatures this game. This is why I wanted to fight over this relic on turn 1 with a Force of Will, by the way. And why my opponent fought back. Ooh, they relicked themselves. We may be in the exile your library, replace it with graveyard thingy. Reality Shift? Just blanking on the name. Yeah, they're targeting themselves. They've done this in a weird way where they're now locked into this mana. Paradigm Shift, there we go. I'll just say no to that. Like, this lets me continue to surveil, try to hit that last card type. Which land will do it? That's 4. And my opponent can choose to save a few points of damage and get rid of this relic if they want. This is fine. Now I'm in the situation where, like, any regular old cantrip off the top is going to just, like, immediately turn this into a 3/3 and spin the game strongly in my favor. The issue is that the One Ring and Bot Lash dodge Flusterstorm specifically. That one gets to resolve. Flusterstorm is Spell Pierce at first. But now I can counter something like a Swords to Plowshares that is pointed at DRC afterwards. Yes, you may have your blocker. That has no current ability. This is fine. Alright. I'm chillin'. I now have access to green mana, so like Beans are live draws and Uros and Minsk and Booze are live draws that weren't a second ago. I can also just time my opponent out. I would prefer not to head that direction. Yes. That gets to resolve. Gonna bounce my Torpor Orb. No, okay, you're just gonna plus. That's fine. My Flusterstorm is temporarily off, which is kind of a pain. Okay. Feels weird. I'm gonna drop Flusterstorm to just play something that the Teferi needs to respect. My opponent's gonna get to sculpt their turn. Again, I am most afraid of a 4-drop of some kind coming down. Oh, sure. That's happening. So what can happen is my opponent bounces Torpor Orb and also bounces their Thassa's Oracle. Yeah, you can plus on that, Teferi. My Flusterstorm is off. I have drawn so many lands off the top of the deck, unfortunately, meaning that I can't turn this into a flyer. I think my opponent gets to just win, which is really frustrating. So assuming that they have another Thassa's Oracle, they just have the win by bouncing Torpor Orb, playing Thassa's Oracle in a way that's uncounterable. Alright, so Flusterstorm is live, but that shouldn't matter. My opponent just plays Thassa's Oracle. And that does it. That's really frustrating. I just kind of bottomed out there. Like, we got a bunch of lands in a row. I got a Flusterstorm that wasn't live, whereas, like, any cantrip turns this very, very likely into a 3/3 that gets to kill the Teferi, and then none of this happens. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, just the best place to keep your online deck lists, and the reason I say that is it just has so much functionality. So for example, let's take a look at some random legacy deck here. You can click on your various 2-drop slots and you can see what % chance you have of casting various things on curve, and you can get a breakdown of your mana symbols and all of that stuff, and there's a lot more here than just this. Consider checking it out. Alrighty. We have a reasonable Delver opening hand here, where I get to just lead on DRC, and then potentially Ponder into DRC or DRC into Ponder, depending on whether or not I draw another land. The most awkward thing here is just being wastelanded here, so you can make an argument to play Ponder on one in an attempt to double DRC on 2. I took the greedier of the available lines. Okay. Pondering drops Force of Will. I think that's probably okay versus Basic Forest, though. Any card that's not a land just goes into Graveyard here. That can go into Graveyard. We can get that back with Life from Alome in a minute. Yes. Let's draw Brainstorm on my next turn. This hand is going to get aggressive quickly. I am going to play the second DRC, despite the fact that that drops Fury in the short term. With a Brainstorm into 6 damage next turn, I think I'm just okay not having access to Fury if I'll have access to Force of Will instead. It is okay, it's a Glimmer Post. So the Fury is significantly less good, and we'll probably end up brainstorming that away immediately. However, the Life from the Loam is insane. I would like to find green mana now. I'm going to fish very hard for green mana here. This is fine. This gives me a good card right now. Let's bury Fury, and then it doesn't matter what else I do here. So then do Beans, play a new DRC. I'm going to Wasteland pre-combat, because I can counter a crop rotation if my opponent has it. They do not. I get to attack for 2. I have Force of Will for the scariest thing that my opponent can do. And then in the not too distant future, I have Life from the Loam Wasteland. I would like to draw probably just a blue cantrip. I've got instant sorcery land. I've got the easy ones in graveyard, so I just need to trigger DRC and get over the hump here. Alternatively, drawing green land allows me to put Uro in graveyard and just put my opponent on approximately a 2-turn clock. It's a little weird because I know they have Glimmer Post. Or no, it's not, because Glimmer Post just puts them to 17, not 19, because I got rid of Cloud Post. All right, so there's 18. That's a Pithing Needle for Wasteland. I'm going to take triple Surveil here and keep Wasteland on. Triple Surveil should get me... Okay, fantastic. So that's Enchantment in graveyard. These are 3/3s. That's Fury in graveyard. They're very much 3/3s. Yeah, you go to graveyard too. I can't cast you right now. This just puts my opponent on a 2-turn clock. Yeah, this is good. That is the sound of a dragon's rage, just in case you were wondering. Drops my opponent to 9. We'll pick up a Trop. And I'm just going to pull the 2 Wastelands out. I want to leave another land in there. Just in case something kind of weird happens. And my opponent is done with me. Glacial Chasm isn't an out if I have just Wastelands at the ready. So, a lot of my cards are kind of awkward. Sorry, a lot of my sideboard cards are kind of awkward in that I have things that do stuff. But the stuff they do is mid. So for example, a Null Rod can shut off Expedition maps. A Surgical Extraction can take Cloud Posts from the deck if I've already Wastelanded it. Luster can stop some things, but does nothing against the game-ending Eldrazi, Titans, things of that nature. I'll probably play the generic Brazen Borrower. It attacks for 3. I'll probably consider Force of Negations. And I don't think I'm going to consider Luster. I'll consider Surgical. Actually, it's a little weird, but I should also probably consider Meltdown or Pithing Needle. So that stops my easiest axis of interaction. Lightning Bolts are weird. They are an early removal spell for Elvish Reclaimer, which matters a lot. I'm not sure how good Up the Beanstalk is in this matchup specifically. I think I'm going to let Up the Beanstalk go for these 4 cards, and I don't think I'm going to try to Surgical on the draw. Auto Mulligan, no land. This is not really what I want to see. I don't think it goes back. I think we just lean on Brainstorm being Brainstorm to kind of fix this hand. Fury was the obvious outlier in that hand as far as card quality goes. Ponder's fine. I almost want to fetch first. It's not, though. I don't want Fury. I'm fine drawing these other cards. I will put Wasteland on top and draw Murktide Regent. So I'll likely be pretty aggressive with a Daze right now. Ooh. Obviously that is good. Let's wasteland the OG cloud post here. Yep. And then pass turn. I'm likely to cast an end of turn brainstorm, even though it's not going to be a perfect brainstorm. I would like to surgical my wasteland. I'm not the biggest fan of that. Let's brainstorm and decide whether or not I am fighting over that. Fury goes back. And some card that I redraw goes back. But let's not think about it too much. I could use this to shuffle. I'm going to take the shuffle and just lean on Daze to get one thing and Force of Negation to get another thing. And then I'm hoping to like draw a cantrip so that I can DRC into Grow My Graveyard. Then hopefully like capitalize on a window before my opponent starts doing big broken stuff. Stage is slow. It's good, but it's slow. Okay, that's not what I want. It's what I've got, though. So, got 2 cards in graveyard. I would probably be pretty aggressive with a Force of Negation, honestly. If I hit, like, a creature, I can then fetch, and that's enough card types in graveyard to turn these 2 into 3/3s. What is that naming? That name's Giant. So Primeval Titan is in the medium range future. Uncounterably as well, which is not great. I've got a pair of 1/1s. My opponent copies Cloud Post, and then if they have another green mana, they get to resolve Primeval Titan. Which then can like get double Glimmer Post, give my opponent a bunch of life, and I'm not actually very good at answering a resolved Primeval Titan. It's 5. That's a Spirit Guide for 6. I could fire off counterspells at this in an attempt to grow these. I'm just going to try to stop the thing that comes next instead. But like this is the point that I don't want to see. Like my counterspells just have not had any targets this game other than Surgical Extraction, which I did not believe it was correct to counter. Oh shit, Tabernacle and Bojuka Bog. Okay. So I have 4 dead cards. I'll pay. I think I'm just going to concede here. I think after this attacks and I don't have the ability to like grow these and ambush at mid-combat, that I am just like terminally behind. So Fury's not like the best, but is another early game answer to an Elvish Reclaimer and his threat density. It's like, do I want these? But as we saw, like the Force of Wills can be slightly awkward. This is decreasing my ability to turn DRC into a 3/3 quickly. Alright, I've got a Life from the Loam here. I have the ability to ponder for other lands. I'm going to say this is unimpressive, but fine. Alright, my opponent had to step away for a couple minutes. Now they are back. I'm going to go with Tropical Island first, since Life from the Loam is kind of so critical to my plan for this hand. So this gets me land drop 2, but doesn't find me a wasteland or another color, and I still have 2 more cantrips, so I think I'm just going to shuffle. Lightning Bolt is probably not what I want, but Elvish Reclaimer could change that. Okay, cool. No turn 1 Pithing Needle, so Force of Negation gets to stick around for a little while longer. I think the plan is Brainstorm into Ponder. We're looking for Wasteland specifically right now. Lots of counterspells that may or may not be good. Fury goes back. I think Volk goes back. We will immediately fetch that Volk back out, though. And then we'll Ponder. No. Alright, we have not succeeded in finding a wasteland or a threat. I've got Ponder to try one more time. Be aggressive? Let's be aggressive here. Pithing Needle punishes me, but I don't think my opponent has Pithing Needle. They would have just done it on turn 1. That's fine. That kind of like conveniently dodged Life from the Loam. And There's no wastelands in the graveyard yet. Not really what I want here. No? Chooses to shuffle. Refound Brazen Borrower. Alright. I'm fetching. I think this is a taiga for variety in respect of Uro specifically. I will pick up Wooded Foothills, and then Life from the Loam gives us 3 more looks. It's just a cantrip for Wasteland. And I still have a Force of Will available. I say no. I don't think I get to let my opponent just have 5 mana unchecked this turn. Alright. 3 hits plus Uro. Or sorry, 4 Wastelands to hit plus Uro in 3 looks. Whiff. Which is obviously unfortunate. Green, green, blue, blue. As long as the land is blue or green, we're fine for Uro. Let's pick up more Volks. And we're going to be fishing for our good friends Uro and Wasteland. We probably looked at like 30 cards without finding anything relevant. Well, I shouldn't say anything relevant, but like without finding the Wasteland that probably wins me this game. You're a little late. Okay, so Stage or Boseiju. This takes my opponent off of green. This takes my opponent off of Copy Cloudpost. I think Copy Cloudpost is scarier for me right now. And hopefully I don't just die to a 3/4 generic creature. Like, this is a 5-turn clock. That's no joke. Green Sun's fine. I get to just bolt the Reclaimer. I'm going to wait to do that till my turn in case I draw DRC. Force of Will is a little bit of a punish as a draw. Thank you, deck. That is super cool of you. Get out. Like, this is the stage of the game where Up the Beanstalk is good, but, like, I don't know that I have cast anything that would have triggered it in the past couple of turns. So, like, that's where I'm at. I don't randomly have Mystic Sanctuary, right? Yeah, no. We've drawn another land. So this is awkward regarding the count for Elvish Reclaimer. I think I am still supposed to Wasteland my opponent. But yeah. I can probably turn 1 cantrip into a win here. If I fetch, it changes the clock. I think I don't fetch. My opponent names Scalding Tarn, they shut off 2 of my lands. I might name Wasteland anyway. Yeah, I like that. Oh, I see. Okay, no, that was cute. Yeah, that lets my opponent attack for 6 this turn instead of 4. Now, either one of these is lethal, so it's harder for me to stabilize in a single card. But this helps. I've already got blue, blue, green, green covered. These cards do different things if I leave them around. I think I'm going to get rid of the Tutor Engine, though. I'm going to play this land and pass. So my opponent was like, oh darn, when I fetched with Tarn and then played Fury and then played another Tarn. But like, I think either naming Wasteland or Minsc and Boo is actively good. Like, I think they know I have Wooded Foothills, so like I still just get to play that and fetch for Fury without like this having had an immediate impact on the game. Vesuva gets to Bojuka Bog me again. That's legit. Alright, my opponent does not attack. They can attack and force the trade if they want. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? Playing a 3/3 Murktide Regent into Endurance doesn't make sense, though. So let's slow our roll. My opponent does not have many cards, does not have green mana, and does not have big mana. Like, I can wait until I string together a cantrip or two to make this Murktide Regent into a real card. I get to fetch one more time this game. Oh. Okay. Just talking about something. I can play Murktide Regent as a 3/3 to not die to some sort of like weird colorless removal spell like Dismember. But I think I am not going to take that line. All right. This Uro is batshit insane. Because this lets me fetch multiple times while giving me a redraw. Yeah, I'll do that. Gain 3 life. Attack for 6? No. Let's not. I will play another land, though. I think once this Uro is in play, the attack is good. Alright, green mana is online. So crop rotation for Bojuka Bog is a thing. Elvish Reclaimers are a thing. Oh. Yes. Now our Up the Beanstalks would be in business. Let's nuke that. This is an attack for 6, then an attack for 18. Or sorry, an attack for 18 total damage, leaving my opponent at 2. What does this enable? Well, that's a good one. So my opponent doesn't just get to immediately jump to Primeval Titan mana. So that's the good news for me. This would just be like a great turn to draw a cantrip. That's not what I want. 1, 2, 3. So if I fetch and go to 3, I can cast Murktide Regent. Alright. Hold up. There is no fetchable land left in my deck outside of Taiga. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can lose my Uro to play Murktide Regent while holding up Force of Negation. And then this is 6, 12, plus Murktide Regent lethal. Not counting the One Ring. I think I need this extra power. Goodbye, Uro. An opponent has protection from the One Ring right now. This brings my opponent to 13. But they get a few cards. I have Force of Negation to cover something like Crop Rotation. Glacial Chasm's already been used, though. This, in theory, does not change my clock, right? Like, I lose this, I hit for 12, One Ring, in theory, kills them. I can still counter a lot of things. Alright. There are scarier things that I might need to counter. Echoing Deeps. Or a Glacial Chasm. Yeah. So, that is an oddly specific way to get a second Glacial Chasm that gets around everything that I'm doing. This is an uh-oh moment. I'm gonna let that resolve. I just need to stop like another Pithing Needle on Wasteland because I can still just cantrip into answer Glacial Chasm and win. Like, that is still a line that works. However, I have like not been good at just drawing cantrips. Exhibit A. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 1, 2, 3. All right. Cast. We are doing this for a Surveil. Lightning Bolt. No. I'll put that in the graveyard. I will use this ability. So note that I do get the 1/1, but Minsk and Boo has no text otherwise right now. My opponent does have a lot of cumulative upkeep life loss between the One Ring and Glacial Chasm. Like, this is more than they normally have to sustain at once. Ugh. You're going for the Surgical Extraction on Lightning Bolt. I guess maybe I did not respect Lightning Bolt enough as like a way to finish my opponent off. I'm gonna just let that happen. Like, I was so zeroed in on just like cantrip into something that beats Glacial Chasm and I win. But I guess if my opponent loses 4 to the One Ring and then 2 to Glacial Chasm, Lightning Bolt does just get them. But, like, this just gets disrupted if my opponent starts going down the the Glimmer Post based lines. Yeah. I let middling stuff like Once Upon a Time resolve, I think. That finds a Thespian stage, which can copy Glacial Chasm later. Alright. Let's do something here. Tarn goes to graveyard. 4 more looks with Ponder. None of those are any good right now. Force of Will is, I guess, defensible, but I would like to try to win. No. No winning for me. Like, I missed on Wasteland, and I missed on every cantripping card in my deck. And the remaining Lightning Bolts. I imagine my opponent now Thespian stages and copies? Oh, they're going to 2. That means the One Rings trigger is, in theory, lethal. Primeval Titan with no Cavern of Souls punishes me not taking Force of Will. I'm not sure how much Primeval Titan matters, as weird as that is to say. Like, my opponent can gain 4 life, which is, like, fine. But, like, if the floodgates break open, shouldn't matter. Thank you, deck. Very cool. No, I feel like I'm not supposed to take Force of Will. Like, I feel like such a huge portion of the time, like, I hit a Wasteland, a cantrip, even a Meltdown. Just get rid of this and start throwing things with Minsk and Boo is, like, totally fine. Not to mention that, like, Cavern of Souls is a reasonable Magic the Gathering card that my opponent would not have had time to play out yet. It is also possible that timeout starts coming into the equation here. My opponent should... Well, they might copy. They might just attack with Primeval Titan. They don't do any damage to me, but they get to tutor twice, which is presumably quite strong. Sure. Are there more Echoing Deeps, I guess, is a real question. 5 mana. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 is a scary number. 11 is Eldrazi. Thanks, I hate it. This gives my opponent a window to resolve something like another copy of the One Ring, but this does give me the opportunity to surveil. That goes to graveyard. Don't have a Wasteland right now. Force of Will goes to graveyard. I am trying to win. These are now 3/3s. That's a Ramunap. Or Glacial Chasm again. Oh, Endurance. That was not as bad as it could have been. Okay, so they're going to put the Glacial Chasm back in their deck instead. Sure. That works. Cloud Post. So, like a Glacial Chasm and 1 Glimmer Post? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Yes. The Bog is gone. My opponent goes up to 7. I will first strike away Primeval Titan. And here's to hoping for a live draw. I just dredge Life from the Loam. That gives me 3 looks at Wasteland, 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 Uro, but gets blown out by Surgical. Let's not do that. Okay, so let's confirm. I attack, and then this blocks 3/6, easily lethal. There is green mana showing crop rotation could be a thing. Let's try though. Destroy this. Alright. I am not dead to an Endurance backswing. I'm okay attempting lethal. We got the no. My opponent struggled really damn hard to stay in there. But we do end up getting there. Ooh. Really, let's go big screen. Really not sure about whether or not I am supposed to keep in Up the Beanstalk. Like, in the end game where, like, I was very obviously flooding out and stuff, it would have been great to turn some of those Furies and Force of Wills into redraws. But in the early game, I want to conceptually be pressuring my opponent and attacking their mana, and taking time off to Beanstalk doesn't contribute to that. So, I don't know. All right, we are playing against Manaless Dredge. Or not, sorry, no, not Manaless Dredge. Blue Dredge. I'm on the draw. I think conceptually to win game 1 when I don't have Endurance or other exile-based hate, I need a threat in the opening hand. This is a threat in the opening hand. So I'm going to keep this. I'm going to bin the Fury. My plan is wasteland my opponent's first land drop to hopefully stop them from doing something like Otherworldly Gaze. And we'll go from there. And here we go. There is the Careful Study. My Daze in the first hand would not have countered this on the draw, and we do have 2 Dredgers in graveyard, and Wasteland does not get to take out my opponent's initial land drop, which obviously is bad news for Phil fans. We'll drop DRC, and I need to get a little lucky here. I'm not gonna lie. Fuck. No. No, stop. There is a Narcomoeba with Cabal Therapy and Bridge from Below. 2 Bridge from Belows. Yeah, life's bad. The Cabal Therapy is, in theory, this, like, nice little guessing game. But when you get to look multiple times, it gets kind of silly. The opponent named Daze with the first one, which is reasonable. And now they get to just do this 2 more times. They can take probably my Brainstorm and Lightning Bolt. They just leave me with a Murktide Regent that gets stranded in hand and decrease the power of this DRC. My Lightning Bolt can destroy my DRC and get rid of 2 of the bridges, which my opponent does not want. Broadside is interesting. Am a little bit short of Murktide Regent this turn. A mana short of Broadside. My opponent's turn 1 basic land is very, very good. Oh no. My opponent gets to look for extra fuel for Icarids as well as additional copies of Bridge from Below. There's another Narcomoeba. Just 1 Icarid exiling a Stinkweed Imp. And if there's another cantrip on top of what my opponent has already done, I don't think I can possibly win. I haven't been tracking my opponent's dredges to hand. But I think they're on mostly Dredgers in hand. Alright, again, basic island, very good. I can essentially sacrifice DRC and Broadside to get rid of my opponent's Bridge from Belows, which might be what I'm doing. Doesn't feel good. Let's get a Taiga. I can send this. I think I'm just letting my opponent block and sending damage at face. I will plan on killing the zombie token. Actually, I could just let damage resolve rather than throwing and keep the DRC around. The bridges go away. And I guess I kind of hope that Murktide Regent can steal this game. It's just like tough with Otherworldly Gaze ×3 in my opponent's graveyard. That's triple Dredger. Fuck. Okay. Yeah, no. New Bridge from Below in graveyard. I can eliminate this Bridge from Below by blocking Icarid, which, while it doesn't feel good, it's probably what's happening. Gives my opponent the zombie that they were going to get anyway, but comes at an upside for me. I can play a 5/5 Murktide Regent. Taiga was an awkward choice. Or Ponder into Murktide specifically. I don't know, Murktide doesn't actively win me this game. It just stops some of the bleeding. Let's try to do better. Daze is not better. I take 3 more points of damage for not doing that. 3. How many black creatures are in graveyard? Only 1. Okay. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I go to 3. I was trying to fish for something like an Uro that has a more realistic chance of helping me stabilize. But missing was pretty detrimental. There is a Dread Return in Graveyard, which could get back like a Golgari Grave Troll. Not the most relevant thing in the world. Another land doesn't really do it. Yeah, like I can play a Murktide and block and I die. I don't have that much graveyard hate, right? Yeah, I really don't. I can play some Surgicals. Force of Negation is okay. Flusterstorms and Pyroblasts are okay. Not great, just okay. So conceptually, I'm going to end up in this like same space as last time where like, do I play these? I think the answer is yes, because my Furies are actively good at helping me catch up and stabilize versus just onboard creatures. Let's assume Life from the Loam is bad. Let's not Lorien Revealed. Lightning Bolts are awkward. Get rid of those. This gets me these 4 pieces of interaction. I think Fluster is fine. Pyroblast taking half of a Otherworldly Gaze is not great. Lightning Bolt to go to my opponent's dome to finish them off might be better. I'm going to take 1 Pyroblast. I'm going to keep my beans. On the draw, my Dazes are going to be pretty bad. I'll probably get rid of those on the draw. Alright. This is good enough. I think my opponent's deck is just going to eat me alive. But let's try to sculpt a plan. Surgical's very good. Go Broadside on bottom, then Surgical, draw Force of Negation, no shuffle, and then if my opponent casts Otherworldly Gaze on their turn, which I don't know that they would do, but if they did, I could Force of Negation it. Careful study. Despite the fact that I have Surgical, I am just still going to fight over this to buy time to get myself set up. I don't want to let my opponent put 2 Drudgers with different names into Graveyard and just end up putting me in a very awkward spot. Let's try to get Beans set up, which is something that we haven't done a ton in this league. Careful study is resolving. Yeah, there's 2 Drudgers with different names. Okay, so I can opt to really decrease the power of this turn. I am going to do so. I'm going to go ahead and take out the Grave Trolls. Otherworldly Gaze in hand. Alright, anything interesting? There's an Ashen Rider and a Hogak that I actively need to be aware of. My opponent doesn't have any weird bounce spells boarded in or anything. So let's see how bad this is. The first dredge does not produce a second dredger, so that's short-term good news. So on my turn, I would love to brainstorm or ponder my way into a wasteland for that Cephalid Coliseum. Or just fucking naturally draw it like a baller. I'm good with that. Ponder? I think ponder over brainstorm, because I don't want to like fetch and clear this turn. A Surgical. Don't mind if I do. What do I want to draw next turn? DRC and then cast Brainstorm. The Brainstorm that's in my hand, clarifying. Yes. Alright, so let's eliminate Bridge from Below fully from this game. This also potentially shuffles some respectable cards off of my opponent's top of library. Wasteland Cephalid Coliseum. And then we kind of hope that we beat my opponent playing fair. Otherworldly Gaze could produce a Dredger. Hogak is a real plan for my opponent to steal this game. Alright. So, let's try to do cool brainstorm things. Let's get deeper here. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. I will put back Fury and Force of Will. I will wasteland my opponent's land drop. And then I just kind of hope that a large Murktide Regent will end up essentially racing my opponent to double Icarid. This is fine. I have to keep the 8/8 out of play. Brazen Borrower is in the sideboard. Got it. Will I trade DRC for a Narcomoeba? Nah. So I get to draw a card off the Murktide, which gives me the Fury, which I can use to clear multiple creatures at the same time, which is another reason not to just immediately go in. I guess my opponent could also cast multiple Stinkweed Imps. And I guess I could also Force of Will Hogak. There's a Cabal Therapy in the yard. But it comes at the cost of a real body. So I would like to find a red card and just nuke all 4 of these bodies. I think that is worth doing. Uro can go directly to graveyard. Draw 3. Any red card or any blue card helps out a lot here. Okay. So put back Force of Will, Wooded Foothills. Yeah. Put back Force of Will, Wooded Foothills, Evoke Fury, getting rid of Broadside, draw the Wooded Foothills. Just literal 4 creatures with Fury. We're fine with killing the Thug. Like, the Thug does have an ability that lets my opponent, like, put a creature on top. Like, they can put a Narcomoeba on top, and I'm okay with that. I'll drop DRC. I'll drop land. Force of Will is my top card. I swing at my opponent for 11. At this point, I think Hogak is irrelevant. And I think we can probably beat an Ashen Rider. Although I think that would be very difficult to get into play. Thug is fine. I'm gonna fetch the Force of Will off the top of my deck. I'll get a Tropical Island in respect of Uro that's in graveyard. Opponent's going to 1 in theory here. Assuming the Murktide Regent blocks Narcomoeba. And then I will Uro. Land. Instant. I don't think it matters, yeah. I guess in respect of Hogak, I can bring in the Brazen Borrower. Like, Hogak is one of the few things that beats me if I stabilize with some surgicals. But, like, please keep in mind that that was the game where I drew 2 surgicals. And that's both my pieces of graveyard interaction. My Dazes are pretty rough on the draw. Let's bring in some board interaction. So I'm going to get a Brazen Borrower. I could pick up like a Pyroblast and a Lightning Bolt. Yes. This one gets a no from me. Like, we've got DRCs for days, but we don't have a real plan to stop my opponent's graveyard nonsense. I'll keep this 6, I guess. I think my opponent is currently favored to win. But I think that was true from the time that we sat down for this match. All right. So my opponent can take... I'd say my Brainstorm is pretty easily the best card in this hand. Depending on like when they can play another discard card, it's possible they take Dragon's Rage Channeler instead, but I think Brainstorm is the prize. All right. Graveyard nonsense happens immediately, unfortunately for me. And it's a troll, which probably sets my opponent up for turn 2 Cephalid Coliseum. I put you on bottom. I put you on bottom because I did not want you. Like, I can play this, but assuming my opponent has a second land, fuck. Bridge from Below, Cabal Therapy, and Narcomoeba. Life's bad. The second land drop is another Cephalid Coliseum. Absolutely fuck me. Oh, that's so bad. They can take the known Brazen... Oh, okay, they're just gonna troll themselves. Yeah. That's fine. That's a good line. Okay. More Narcomoeba, more Bridge from Below. Dread Return is out there as well. Yeah, life's awful, and I expect that I am now effectively dead. I'm not literally dead, but I think this is the tipping point. My opponent has seen over half their deck, and it is turn 2. Oh, and Grief. Sure. Grief notably here triggers Bridge from Below 3 times. My opponent is just like very good of going wide of my initial opening hand. At this point, it's like difficult for me to imagine how I win here. Dread Return's just going to target Grief and take out my Murktide Regent. There's 18 power worth of zombies. We can toss in the towel here. GG's. We'll match though. All right, I have a reasonable opening hand here. I am on the draw, making my days ever so slightly worse, but making my days much worse. Okay. My opponent is just going to make 6 power on turn 1. Oh, there's a delay. There's some question. Oh, fuck. All right. I guess I'm showing my opponent what I'm doing. And my opponent pitched Archon. So, I get to see what's up. All right, there is the reanimate for the troll. So the way that I win this is find a way to spin my opponent's life total of 14 back on them, which is not going to be the easiest thing to do. I basically can't Daze to return an island to my hand. I don't have game 1 Brazen Borrower. I'm just like eating this damage. It is tough for me to kill this troll. Not impossible. Like I can stack up double lightning bolt or something. That is awkward. Let's brainstorm to see if I have to counter. This is not the sort of stuff that I'm hoping to see. I think I'm going to put back Daze. Maybe put back like Row. The issue is that like Troll is so close to being a 2-turn clock. I kind of need that Uro. A Daze goes 2 cards down. Maybe I can't Force of Will. This is miserable. I'd Fury. So I Force of Will. I lose a redraw if I don't force though. Alright. Force of Will. Pitching A Daze. Redraw Fury. Get a Volk. I cast Up the Beanstalk. I'm hoping to draw running red cards. That is not running red cards. Alternatively, I can just like draw a land and play Uro to stay alive another turn versus this. Because it is currently lethal. That's rough. So I think my opponent just takes the Uro from my hand. Because then I can't ever gain 3 life off it and stay alive one more turn. Okay, they agree. And Up the Beanstalk. I have an out. It's just really weird. Those are not the cards that play towards my really weird out. So I have to shuffle. I need to draw a red card right here. I did not draw a red card. So I needed to draw red card, pitch cast, Fury, Fury draw off Up the Beanstalk, draw Lightning Bolt. And I did not hit that. Unfortunately, that means that I am dead. Surgical's in, Luster in, Force of Negation, Brazen Borrower in. I can go down some number of win conditions here. So many things are just awkward versus Grief. Go down the Lorien Revealed. I guess Broadside is like technically an out to a troll. Technically. Are the Furies even good? Maybe they aren't. Maybe trying to double combine removal spells as outs to these things is not ideal. Don't really need Light from the Loam. Do I need something like Minsk and Boo? Let's say no. The triple lightning bolt hand is not really what I'm looking for. Let's ship this one. This is mediocre, but I'm probably keeping it after 1 mulligan. Well, now my land's tapped for black. I'll respond. Surgical's cool, DRC is cool. Let's intend on drawing Surgical for my turn. And then I can cast Brainstorm if I still have it to play DRC, but this way I always have the Surgical. Yeah, it's weird because like my opponent could like go Lotus Petal and like go off right here if I put the Surgical back. So we will re-Brainstorm. Definitely going to put back a land. I think I want the Uro. Put back Brazen Borrower. And then Play DRC. Probably off Volk. It could be Taiga. I keep finding that the Taiga is awkward later on. I'm just going to get Volk. And drop my creature. I'm in kind of a medium strength position. Fucking grief. Do I surgical? My opponent stacked those triggers wrong. I think I surgical. This lets me surveil as well. Daze can go to graveyard. Oh! There's Hex Depths stuff coming. Okay. And Galta. Alright. Understood. You can take my Uro. Opponent can play a 2/1 first striker, but they don't really have manipulation. This is okay. Hey, love this for me. Yeah, that's probably an above average draw. So I'll just take that. I will fire it off immediately in hopes of getting in for 3 points of damage this turn. We're done with Dazes. We do not want those. Okay. Yes. So I am going to put Broadside 2 down, I think. I think I don't need to remove Vampire Hexmage, because if my opponent just plays Thespian Stage this turn, and then if they top deck a Dark Depths, they don't need the Vampire Hexmage anymore. So I think I just always want to be able to play a Murktide Regent next turn. I think that's where I'm at. Yep. Yeah, my opponent can attack. And the points of damage are relevant, because I have some life gain in this deck, and it's very easy for me to go to 21. And I can just pay extra mana here if I want. Instants are here in spades. We can just take all those out and be fine. I'll draw the broadside. Give my opponent a love tap. And I have lethal next turn, because broadside throwing Murktide Regent is a thing this deck is designed to do. You may absolutely make a different color of mana. It's technically relevant. You know, Atraxa is a card in my opponent's deck. Alright, cool. So let's play Broadside, which I want to remind you has Menace and Haste. Attack for 10. Oh, right. Wait, does this matter? Is my opponent still dead? Yeah, you can have another one of those. I mean, I can dome them for 9. I think I'm just going to take that. Target. Rah! Now we can say we've done it. This is lethal on board, and I can just also like play this Murktide Regent and throw it at my opponent's face. Alright, we did the thing. So now I know like Dark Depths is in my opponent's deck. I'm not sure that that changes anything about my plans. Makes the Life from the Loam better. I guess technically it kind of makes Fury better. Answers Vampire Hexmage. Let's get this Life from the Loam back in the deck, I guess. What do I cut? 1 Lightning Bolt, maybe? I don't think I'll miss 1 Lightning Bolt. It's like fine versus Grief. It's good versus Vampire Hexmage. I could also go down and up the Beanstalk. Like, I don't think I get to board those out, because we do end up in a mid-range grindfest some portion of the time, but I don't know that I need one every time on turn 2. I'm going to keep this. I have Force of Negation for an early reanimate. Otherwise, I'll have Daze up starting turn 1. Lightning Bolt is not the best. I have to choose a color here. I'm going to go with Trop. Under for a second land is very good. An awkward land. It's fine. I think I'm going to accept it as fine. And put the Wasteland in my hand. Hide the Ponder. I can Daze if I absolutely have to. I'm going to say that is a have to. I don't think I get to let my opponent just entomb. I have Force of Negation pitching Uro. Yeah, and this is the sort of time when Like, the Wasteland is not going to be good, but if my opponent, like, plays Thespian Sage or Dark Depths, like, it's a slam dunk. Let's probably shuffle, unless the cards under here are just fire. They are not. They're not bad. I think with an Up the Beanstalk redraw here, I'm interested in shuffling. Okay, nice. I am happy with that. The Daze does very meaningfully set me back. Cool. No secondary Entomb is, like, massive. This is where things could get ugly, though. Because Grief can take my one piece of free interaction, and then my opponent's got free reign. I'm totally fine versus Grief, reanimate Grief. Like, I think I beat that a number of different ways, to the point where I don't even have to think of that as a problem. The problem is where my opponent, like, Troll and reanimates, or Entomb and reanimates. Oh, my opponent's setting up for a longer game. They took the beans. It is Depths and Hexmage. Yeah. So as long as they make this at sorcery speed, which they just opted not to do, I don't have any recourse. However, they did not opt to make that at sorcery speed. So, I had to play this Wasteland. And that's a pretty big mistake. Especially since I drew the life from the loam. Reanimate on Grief. I think I gotta stop that. I think that's worth 2 cards right now, just in terms of raw tempo. I am fine taking some hits from Vampire Hexmage, because I can just kind of clean up everything on my own turn. Okay, now I can't. The Grief, however, will be weaker. It was my plan to Lightning Bolt Vampire Hexmage, and then, like, have Wasteland available for Dark Depths. Now I don't get to do that. Alright, my opponent saw that line. So I can cast a Life from the Loam this turn if I would like. If I do, I kind of am locked into dredging it the following turn, which I'm not the biggest fan of. I guess I can leave it in the graveyard for a little while. Alright. Sure. Let's get a Volk. I just play Life from the Loam as a perfectly normal draw 2. Broadside is pretty close to being good. I need another creature. Once I have another creature, it is actively great. At this stage of the game, I'm looking for a removal spell, like Fury's good. Do I still have Furies? What did I do regarding those? Got rid of them. Alright, no Dredge. Force of Will is a terrible draw. I'm going to drop a land. I'll play out the Broadside. Menace and First Strike are both problematic here. I'll start pressuring my opponent back. Any, like, creature, removal spell, Uro, and a secondary Wasteland's not bad. Secondary Wasteland's not good enough that I, like, Dredge Life from the Loam or anything, but I keep reaching this point of the game where I am drawing Dazes instead of drawing real control cards, and it's definitely frustrating. Like, my opponent punted this one to the stratosphere by not making a 20/20, and that's why I'm dead on their turn 8 rather than their turn 3. But, you know, if I whiff on all my draws, that is what it is. Alright, so I can play a Murktide Regent here, and then I can hold it back defensively rather than just throw it with Broadside. Okay. Bolt, Force of Negation, Ponder, Daze, Ponder. So next turn, I am potentially the beatdown now. I'm not going to play this Scalding Tarn, I don't think. I'm also not going to attack with Broadside. I want to be able to chump block in case my opponent, like, brought in some random removal spell. So, do I block? If I block, I kill Grief. I can just go to 2, attack my opponent for 10, or rather, attack my opponent for 8, and then throw Murktide Regent for 9, which is theoretical lethal, but it's not lethal anymore if my opponent plays another creature? Or no, I guess it is. I think I'm going to block. I think this Murktide Regent just ends up killing my opponent on its own. enough of the time that I just don't take the damage from this. And I accept a 2-turn clock rather than a 1-turn clock to double my life total. No dredge. That is a great safety net. Now I am comfortable attacking. Opponent's at 8. You may absolutely remove 2 ice counters. I am fine taking the hit for 2. I already beat Collective Brutality just by force of willing it. Yeah, this is fine. Opponent has something big. They've tapped and untapped their mana. Force of Will presumably counters whatever is about to come next. It is a troll. I'm going to let that resolve and just bounce it. So petty theft it back to your hand. I tapped wrong. I have to lose 1 life to play my Brazen Borrower. Oh well. It means I can't. Oh, I just fucked up. Please don't notice. Oh, thank God my opponent didn't notice. They could have made a 20/20. I tapped Wasteland. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll play this land anyway. So my opponent now has to sacrifice and remove these counters, meaning I can attack with both of my creatures. I played this one badly, but I think my opponent made worse mistakes. All right, so you remove those counters. You take 6 and go to 2. And I have 1 or 2 counter spells available. All right, my opponent cycles, which is fine. Like at this point, I can let my opponent make a 20/20. The Wasteland is not relevant anymore. I don't know that I deserved that one. I punted this one into the stratosphere. But so did my opponent, so they la vie. All right, final round here. We're going to keep this one. We're going to kind of be solidly jockeying for a control game with like Up the Beanstalk, Force of Will, Minsk, and Boo. And just kind of hope that my opponent doesn't do anything. Well, my opponent can do one thing. I'm okay with them doing one thing, but if they do 2 things early on, I am not going to be a happy camper. My opponent's mulliganing aggressively. We, 4. All right. This is like Reanimator levels of mulligan, or maybe bad luck with an Ancient Tomb deck levels of mulligan. All right, they did keep on the 4. I had a weird lag spike there. I was horrified that my land drop wasn't going to get into play. Bad Ancient Tomb draw is the answer. It is a Chalice of the Void on 1. I will go ahead and just Force of Will that. And then just set up for a longer game with Up the Beanstalk. It does mean that if my opponent has like red land sticker goblin payoff card, that things could get a little dicey. My deck have basics. Nope. Noted. Any blue card here is batshit insane. Nope. There's the red land drop. Yep. So dead? Not technically dead. In very bad shape. But not technically dead. Yeah, like you can debate that Chalice counter, but I have 17 1-drops in this deck. And no way, right? No game 1 way of answering a resolved Chalice. So I think I am supposed to stop that. Trinisphere is largely irrelevant. Okay, there is a red win condition. It's not the greatest. It's hard for me to surveil. Not impossible. It's hard. Cantripping Furies, Cantripping Force of Wills are actively very good. Rabblemaster resolves because Trinisphere. And I'll get attacked for 1. I have lightning bolts that like very easily answer this. If Furies I can draw. That's a surveil at least. In theory. Oh, that's a fantastic Force of Will target. Costs me 3 mana. Let's get some selection for this card draw, I guess. Lightning Bolt answers Rabblemaster. I'll take that. That solves an immediate problem. Trinisphere says I don't get to cast that this turn, though. And then once we solve the immediate problem, we can start working on other stuff. I think I'm supposed to leave this in play. I don't think I'm trading for a token. Like, in theory, at some point, I find a Fury and I clean up a bunch of goblins. Brainstorm's a dead draw. Do I wait to do this? I guess I can wait to do this. Not like there's red blink or anything. I'm gonna send in for one. I think I need to reboot Magic Online. But I expect this match will go quickly one way or another. A Sokenzen channel. That's very good. I am definitely setting up this narrative, though, where Fury is just batshit insane as a draw. Graveyard. Because now this is 4 bodies. I'm at 6. Alright, we're holding back at this point. At this point, I may need to start thinking about trading DRC for a single token. It doesn't feel good. I'm intending on pre-blocks Lightning Bolt a goblin token. Surveilling, see if I turn into a 3-3. If I turn into a 3-3, I get a good block. Alright. So we do this thing. Daze goes to graveyard. I think I am trading 1 for 1 here. This gives me a couple turns to draw Fury. Gives me 2 more attack steps. Land drop is not doing it. That kills me immediately, unfortunately. I mean, that is unfortunate. Yeah, with no main deck way to answer a resolved Chalice, I think my force of will on that is correct, especially after the mulligan to 4. It is, however, very frustrating. Hydroblast, Force of Negation in, Brazen Borrower in. Life from the Loam can probably go. I have to respect both Blood Moon and Magus of the Moon, while also probably countering Chalice, because again, I have one answer to it in the form of a sideboard Brazen Borrower. Lorien Revealed doesn't cycle for a basic land, which is brutal. Daze sometimes gets got by Spirit Guide. Broadside is a red only win condition, but if I get mooned, it's probably not actually winning me the game on its own. I think I'm going to cut those. And we do this. They become a little heavier in terms of counterspells. Oh, this is fine. This has double counterspell and gets an onboard threat on turn 1. Alright. This is an obligatory volcanic island. Hand's not perfect in that I'm missing a color of mana. But a lot of times my opponent begins this game with like Ancient Tomb Chalice or something like that, and then I just get to like Daze that and Wasteland. It is City of Traders, not Ancient Tomb, but same thing applies. I am going to attempt to just Daze this. That's my other color. Should I be greedier? I think I'd be greedier. Alright, cool. Nice. Very happy with that. So we now take this out and start just getting in there. And then hopefully we buy a turn where my opponent just does nothing. Dead. Alright. As much as I want this DRC alive so that my brainstorm becomes better, I don't think I can fire off my only counterspell on a card that does not end the game. Oh, nice. So my opponent does not have a follow-up play. I'm going to risk the end of turn brainstorm here. I'm immediately punished. Alright. So the reason that I'm risking the end of turn brainstorm is that I know my opponent is missing land drops, and all I want to do is put this Murktide Regent into play. And if I put a 5/5 into play and just 4-turn clock my opponent, there's a very good chance that that goes all the way. However, I now time walk myself. I have to redraw this card before I can do anything. And things become pretty awkward if I miss on a cantrip or land in the next turn cycle. I don't think I fire off a lightning bolt at my opponent's face or anything. We do miss, yeah. I will just be discarding a card, which is super unfortunate. Maybe I am supposed to take that second land early on. With a brainstorm and multiple draw steps around, though, I don't know that I love that. This resolves. I'm not interested in Force of Willing a Chrome Mox. A Blood Moon has been pitched, which is a really strong card. They just have another. All Spell Pierce. I could just Daze this one. I think I want to Spell Pierce it, though. I want to leave this land in play so that I can just resolve a Murktide Regent if I draw a land. Like, that's all this game is about. Just resolve one card, attack with it 4 times. However, we are just whiffing. So my opponent gets to presumably deploy 1 card per turn. I think at this point I need to consider doing a lightning bolt to face. I'm not going to do it. All right. Let's try this. It happens. How many instances are there? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the 5th. All right. I'll send one of those upstairs. Okay, cool. So next turn I get to deploy Murktide. And then hopefully we dodge like Dead Gone or Pyroblast. Fable. Fable is very good. However, I don't think I am attacking that. I will Lightning Bolt this token, though. I don't want my opponent to get into the situation where they can play multiple cards in a turn cycle. If I want to play a control game, I can play Up the Beanstalk this turn. I have seen 3 of the 4 Blood Moons, but there's also Magus of the Moon, though, and I don't have access to Lightning Bolt anymore. I think we're just doing this. Bolt, Bolt, Daze, Pierce, Daze. This is a 2-turn clock. Where did my opponent lose that life? I guess this. There's a Dead Gone at some point. My opponent has looted away some goblins. At this point, I let a Blood Moon resolve. Or a Magus of the Moon resolve, I think. I think it is fully Protect the Queen. 4 mana cards are now on the table. Broadside. That's good, but it's only good here. I think I'm letting that go. Broadside currently can't make things big enough to kill Murktide Regent. Rabble Master. Opponent's token attacks for 1. I get hit for 2. I am at 16. I attack them. They are 1 swing from lethal. They make a token on their turn. They attack for 4, 5, 6, 7. And fling for 5. So they can do 12. This is currently not lethal. I let this resolve. So I can block here safely. Murktide Regent is so big. Oh, I throw it in my face. Did not account for that. My math still math out. I also just have DRC as a blocker or can play another Murktide Regent if I draw a blue card. I think I'm good. Or that can just happen. Play Up the Beanstalk first, too. Add insult to injury. Draw a card. Yeah, that's good. Fury. Pitch DRC. Draw a card. 2 damage to each. I now have Force of Will backup for my opponent's 2 cards. I'm at 14 life. We should be good. Fable token doesn't block flying. We do have to do this another time, though, unfortunately. And the game on the draw is obviously harder. About the only noticeable change I can make is play Hull Breacher as a blocker. My Dazes get worse. I might still need them. Spell Pierce is noticeably worse on the draw. Might still need it. I have a Force of Will and a Daze here. and a turn 1 play, and a turn 1 removal spell. I am going to... Oh, fuck, I don't have Daze. This is a fucking taiga. This was a mulligan. Hopefully I just draw an island. Yeah. I don't think I get to counter that. Shatter Skull Smashing. And Goblin Rabblemaster. I'm going to let that resolve and Lightning Bolt. Yeah, it leaves a 1/1 in play. I think that is acceptable. All right. Let's take out this creature. Hopefully I don't have to weather too many more spells. Like my opponent did mulligan and then Chrome Mox. My opponent tapped and untapped some stuff, so they're going to just go ahead and attack first. That's fine. 18. They're playing around Daze. At this point, Daze is actively not great. We'll go ahead and Force of Will, pitching one of them. And now I get to establish DRC. I will probably bolt in my upkeep to surveil and try to hit a blue land to finish smoothing out this hand. I'm not interested in blocking the goblin token. This damage is nothing. Another Blood Moon, however, is some shit. Me mistaking for Volk for Taiga and not mulliganing again is a problem. Alright. So now I care less about lightning bolting in upkeep. So I just won't. I have so many dead cards now. And the plan needs to become, and that's one card late. Plan needs to become stop cards like Rabblemaster and Broadside as they come in, and then just turn this into a 3/3 backed with the counterspell. And just hope that my opponent draws somewhat poorly. That does not get countered. That's annoying. Alright. I am going to Lightning Bolt one of those. I need to start looking pretty aggressively for ways to continue surveilling for Fury. Nice. I don't have a red card currently. I can't super select for a red card. I have a little bit of an ability to do that. I'm probably winning this race as it currently stands. But things can change very quickly in one direction or the other. That currently gets cleaned up by the hypothetical Fury. I'm not going to use my Force of Will on that. Second land drop. I don't currently get to attack. I have 3 turns to draw a red card. That is a Shatter Skull Smashing for X's 1 to kill my creature. I can Force of Will that and keep my creature alive. I'm going to do that because it lets me select for a red card. Get rid of a Daze. That's a red card. I'll put that on top. I am not in the clear yet. There's only 2 card types in graveyard. I only have instants and creatures, and it's hard for me to get other things into the graveyard. Like, I evoke this Fury, I clear my opponent's board, but then I'm left with a 1/1. While that's fine, it's unlikely to get bigger, and I am at 7. I need my opponent to top deck their, like, Chalices, Trinispheres, Blood Moons, lands, and not their Rabblmasters and Broadsides. It's so frustrating that I don't have a single basic land in here for, like, Lorien Revealed to be an out or Blood Moon. Because as soon as I have one basic, I can, like, cantrip for the Hydroblast that's in the board, and this is, like, not scary anymore. Right, that is a Chalice of the Void. This is fine. This is the sort of thing that I want my opponent to draw. And 1 is certainly the correct number at this stage of the game. It stops lightning bolts and additional DRCs. Alright. I am going to continue to play land drops, because land drops allow me to play the 2 Furies in my deck. However, once I'm at 5 lands, I'm going to stop playing lands and work towards discarding an enchantment. Yes, this is fine. This is how I need this game to go. Land 4. Down to 12. That's scary. That stops this from attacking, while also being like selection and inevitability. So I'm not calling that one the nail in the coffin or anything, but it's pretty close. I mostly have 2 relevant cards in my deck. Like I technically also have Force of Wills. My opponent chooses not to use that ability. They've got gas. Oh, that's bad. That's a Rabble Master. So I need my next 2 draws to be Land and Fury. Otherwise, I think I am effectively dead. Not actually, but effectively. DRC is no longer a relevant win condition. I'm going to trade this for a token because my Fury that hits the board, in theory, has much more important targets. That is not a thing. I guess I am just dead on board. That is unfortunate. I will concede. We put 2 wins on the board with this one. All right, so let's do this good news, bad news. The good news is we lived up to the hype. We threw a Murktide Regent at my opponent's face, and we're, I think, able to do it 2 turns in a row, or at least theoretically we're able to, but my opponent was dead. There are a lot of things that I don't like about this deck list. The primary one being that it's just, like, clunky. You don't get to answer things in play if they are not answerable via red damage. So when a Murktide Regent hits play, you kind of go like, oh shit, what do I do about that? When a Trinisphere, Blood Moon, Chalice of the Void hits play, like, it's just there forever. And this deck doesn't win quickly. Like, I think it took me 4 hours to record this league, which is a really long time. And I went to time in nearly every round, so that's telling. So in a deck that can just quickly end the game because you're very threat dense, you can afford to ignore permanents. But this is an Up the Beanstalk control deck list that has some tempo elements, and if you can't quickly close the game after something scary resolves, and you can't answer it, that means you're dead to it. Maybe not immediately, but it felt like I was always fighting an uphill battle because I had a bunch of clunk in my deck list. Like, the Fury saved my butt a few times, but it did definitely make my mulligans significantly harder. And, like, essentially, like, this pile of red cards, I'm not going to include Lorien Reveal in it, but, like, the red cards that are in this deck are, generally speaking, pretty bad in the opener. Like, this is a bad broadside deck in that, like, it is a partial control finisher. It doesn't win the game on its own. It allows you to, like, very quickly accelerate a win with Murktide Regent. But, like, I think the best way to phrase this is that this deck doesn't fill any niche better than what's already there. If you want to be a tempo deck list, then you need to be, like, maxed out on Dazes and have more early creatures, Delvers, Stalactite, Stalkers, whatever. If you want to be an Up the Beanstalk deck and drag the game on, I think you need to be either in bug or 4 or 5 colors so that you can actually answer permanents, non-creature permanents that hit play, and answer larger creatures like opposing Murktide Regents. And, like, trying to play a control deck when you, like, start top at decking, like, Spell Pierces and Dazes come the end games, or, like, it felt bad. And in some of the faster matchups, where we were, like, playing against combo where, like, the Up the Beanstalks weren't the best, it was just hard for me to, like, put pressure into play and then back it up with counterspells because I only have DRCs as early pressures. Otherwise, I'm, like, riding on Murktide Regents and Uros when I also have, like, crap like this in my deck list that I have to draw through. I made some errors in piloting today. The Wasteland tapping mistake in particular was pretty bad. And thinking that I had a Volk instead of a Taiga was really bad. Like, I don't think in any world there should be 2 Taigas in this deck list. I think that was very bad. Generally speaking, I also don't want to be playing a deck without any basic lands in Legacy right now, because there's just so much Blood Moon, Magus of the Moon, Goblins, Initiative, Red Stompy, Goblin Stompy nonsense in leagues. That overall, I think this one gets a thumbs down from me. Like it is a fun and cool idea, but I think it is much more clunky than good. But if you have some ideas after watching this video, check out Cool Stuff Inc. to pick up any cards that you need and use promo code ThrabenU to save 5% on your next order. That was exhausting. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. And I'm going to go record a fast deck now because I need to record another league today before I go to bed. See ya.